We have a lending library that is free, and it's full of hundreds of books, journals, magazines, newspapers, cassettes, videos, DVDs, CDs that you're welcome to check out. Because if this is your first time with multi-level marketing, network marketing, there's some stuff you want to learn. And to be good and effective and successful in anything, you need to practice. And the faster you can get through that learning curve, the quicker you can start having success. Everybody eventually does it. They don't give up in discouragement and frustration. People tend to think it's simple, and it is simple, but it's not necessarily easy. It's kind of a people business, and as one person said, this is isn't really it's a self-improvement program disguised as a business. And I thought that was great. And we had another presidential at a conference that acknowledged that the only reason she was a presidential was because she'd run out of things that didn't work. And so our goal is to help you get through the learning curve as quickly as possible. And I was reviewing one of the books we had recently purchased called 87 Multi-Level Marketing Pitfalls Your Upline Never Told You About, by a good friend of ours, Patrick Powers, over in Denmark. Patrick's been very successful, and I summarized his book. I thought it was a very good book, and it was fun for me to go through it because it reminded me of our early days. We started out with Amway, and that was a learning experience. My wife actually enrolled 3 different times because she understood residual income and she understood the power of leverage. She just couldn't figure out how to get this thing to work, and she would get discouraged and quit. And then she would realize there's nothing better out there, and she would sign on again and give it another try. It was hard to get passionate, I guess, about laundry detergent, but my gosh, when Manatech came along, we were well trained because after Amway she tried Nu Skin, she tried Melaleuca, she tried Juice Plus, she tried a lot of different things, but my gosh, when Manatech came along, it was night and day. And yet, these earlier efforts were good because it taught us a lot. And it was a good training ground. We listened to a lot of cassettes. Back then, we didn't have DVDs, of course, and read through a lot of materials and just practiced and eventually began to get the hang of it. But my goal for this session is to save you a lot of time and go through right now these 87 pitfalls that your upline never told you about. Well, I want to tell you about them because the faster you can start making money, the faster we can progress ourselves. So I'll add commentary as we go along. The first one that Patrick listed was the attitude of just trying it to see if it'll work. Sometimes people get involved and they aren't sure. Maybe they've been burned in the past. They got involved with some other MLM at one time, and they didn't get any assistance or any help, and they just couldn't get it to work for them. You know, you want to make measurable commitments. Sometimes you will do, something you will do no matter what. It's kind of like when Cortez landed on the coast of Central America to march with his army inland to conquer the Aztecs in Montezuma. And as the army was lining up and they had been unloading all the ships and they had everything ready to go, Cortez turned to his admirals and said, "Oh, by the way, burn the ships." They weren't going to, there wasn't any option. They were going to do this or die trying. Now, if you are doing something that's going great and you've got a good retirement and you like the 9 to 5 every day or whatever the case may be, so be it, if that's the extent of your vision. But this thing, you either do it or you don't do it. Don't play with it. Don't try it. This business, if you treat it like a business, it'll blow your mind. If you treat it as a little business, it'll always be a little business. If you treat it like a big business, it'll be a huge business. But the commitment in anything in life, in a marriage, in a relationship, makes all the difference in the world. So you want to honor it. this commitment, this opportunity, and it's the only way to get to the top of anything. Trying it to see if it works guarantees failure. Nobody follows a leader who waffles and is uncertain. And this is another reason why it's very hard to build two network marketing companies simultaneously, because they see that you're sending mixed messages, that your allegiance is split, and they aren't sure you're really committed because you're doing this other little thing on the side over here, and this other one, and the third one, the fourth one. And sure, we can justify it, it's covering our bases. What happens if the first one goes bad or dries up? Well, you're almost going to guarantee that happens. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. How would your sweetheart feel if you were covering your bases and maintaining relationships with some of the other guys or gals? And so that's going to be failure. You got to go whole hog. You just jump right in. Now, I'm not saying you don't do due diligence and check it out and ask the tough questions and hang around and look and learn and watch and see if this thing really is good. But Mannatech's been around long, an awful long time, and it's plenty of years for you to go back and check it out or look at its track record and see where it's going. But it's true, a leader needs to know where he's going. He needs to have vision, and committed people attract others who understand commitment. You attract what you are. Deal with doubts, knowing those who spread bad news have a vested interest. In other words, you can go to, for instance, if you check MLMwatchdog.com, there are always going to be people who have doubts and concerns and say, well, I tried this, it didn't work. I tried that didn't work. Well, why do you go to somebody for advice who's a failure? I mean, this industry has created more millionaires in the last 11 years than realtors, than real estate. I mean, up until that time, Donald Trump and others, the largest single segment of millionaires and multimillionaires was in real estate. But when Donald Trump was being interviewed on TV, Good Morning America, one of these programs, he was asked at the end if he would do anything differently after talking about his life and his career and his investments. And he said, I'd get involved in multi-level marketing. And somebody in the audience snickered. And Trump wheeled around and pointed at the guy and said, that's why you're where you are, and that's why I'm where I am. This is a perfect business, compared to any other business. And I mean, no employees, no accounts receivable, no accounts payable. You don't have to formulate the products. You don't have. All we do is service other people. You don't sell anything. There's no exchange of money. You don't have to have inventory. They just order directly from the company. The company sends it to them and then sends you a check. And in fact, I wouldn't even necessarily call it marketing, because one step beyond marketing for me is service. I have a good friend, and I asked him a question about his products. He says, well, I don't care about the science. And I thought to myself, I care about the science, because if it's not legit, sure, I might be able to market it and make millions of dollars. I mean, this guy is very successful. He's been in and out of about 15 or 20 network marketing companies. Well, since I've known him, probably 9 or 10, I suppose. He's always jumping to the next best thing. But he's losing credibility. And he's losing, his downline doesn't want to follow a guy who's so fickle. And when he told me I don't care about the science, I thought, man, I'm not a marketer. A marketer can market stuff, and he doesn't really care about the quality of the stuff. I care about people. If the quality is not legit, I don't want them to buy it just because I can make money. So, when you hear bad news, ask what's the reason, what's the source. Because you're going to be hit, you're going to be shaken a little bit with this stuff, and that's fine. But always ask upline. There's always another side to the coin. There's other, what's the rest of the story? And it's important that you do that. But before you get involved, it's like checking out your sweetheart. You do all your due diligence. You date her for a year or two. You get to know her family. You get to know her background. You get to know her values. You get to know her I mean, obviously speaking as a guy, talking about the gal, but you know, you check it out carefully because you intend to make a lifelong commitment. You don't get married to somebody intending to divorce them. Don't get into a business intending to leave it after a year or two. You know. Okay, number 2, setting goals without making commitments. You set goals to change your future. You see, we talk in terms of dreams, because you have to have a dream to have a dream come true. But a dream isn't a goal. Basically, a goal is a dream with a deadline. So you know where you want to get to. The goals are the mileposts. First I have to try and attain this, and then I have to try and reach this, and then I go on and move to the next goal. Now, you don't set goals so you can scold yourself if you fall short, or get yourself on a guilt trip, or have somebody say, well, you aren't doing your job. You set goals simply to know where you're at, and whether you need to make a correction in your direction, so you can modify things as you move along. But if you don't set goals, you don't know where you're at. You don't know how things are going, and you don't have a vision. So you got to have a vision. Without a vision, people perish. They get swept away. Wishes, hopes, desires still leave you like a ship without a rudder. In a world where most people are wandering around without direction or purpose, you'll stand out. Number 3, investing in the smallest startup pack. Do the same as your leaders. If you select the smallest startup package, your downline will follow suit. They'll follow your example of meager commitment. Find the money. Do what it takes. Garage sale or sell a TV or whatever the case may be. But people in South Africa, when they found out just a compensation plan and how the money worked, you know, you find 2 people make $400, help them find their 2 people. You make, in addition to that $400, you make a $100 team bonus, a $500 fast start bonus, and a $1,000 power bonus. And then, of course, those 2 guys you found, they'll want to do what you just did. So then you help them find their 2, and then they each get their power bonus and their fast start bonus. That's $1,500. So you get it again. And the other guy gets his power bonus and his fast start bonus, $1,500. So you get it again for him too. I mean, you can't do this in the stock market. It's $1,099 to get involved, and you can't find a legitimate franchise like that for that price. And you get almost $1,400 to $1,500 worth of products, depending on how you come on board as an all-star. But then the payout by the end of your first business period, you have nothing invested, and you're way, way ahead, thousands of dollars. And then, if that was fun, you can do it again with 2 more and help them find their 2. But you know, it's part of jumping in. When you jump in, you don't jump in the shallow end. You might hurt yourself. It's too shallow. Jump into the deep end and go for it. And because people will follow your example. And also, what kind of a message do you send your upline? You say, well, I'm just going to try this out. I'm just feeling the water. Are they going to want to invest their finances, their time, their energies, their knowledge, everything into you? I mean, that's really the only way you'll be successful. This is a team effort. No one reaches a high levels by themselves. Okay, number 4. Looking too much for initial results. Initially focus on internal results, skill development, and character growth, while patiently working toward the assured external results. Otherwise, your desperation to see the external results that you want before attaining the internal results necessary will repel prospective leaders. Keep growing personally. If you're anxious and you're coming across people in a kind of a pushy fashion, or I need you to come on board, please sign up, you push them away. Have you ever put your hand up against somebody else's hand and pushed? You tell your friend, put up your hand, and then push against their hand. What happens? Well, they'll push back. Well, why are they pushing back? Well, They don't know. That's the normal reaction. And so this is a self-improvement program. This is a people business. And people want to work with people they like, with people they trust, with people who are leaders, who are knowledgeable, who are competent, who are helpful, and who themselves are successful, who are relaxed, not all uptight and intense and, with high expectations and a lot of pressure on their downline. Do this for me. No. Work on yourself, and meanwhile reach out to help other people as best you can. And that all comes together because if you help enough people get what they want, then you get what you want. Number 4, not doing your homework. Find out what you're getting into. Do the necessary research so you're not dissuaded by rejections or a broke brother-in-law who sees scams and everything. And I mentioned this earlier, but check it out, because there's always going to be the next best thing coming along. We're constantly bombarded with people who, because we've been successful, want us to come over and get involved and help their new startup business, and they'll pay us a lot of money and blah blah blah. And we aren't interested because there's nothing is good. Sure, business might go up and down, people might come and go, but we study the products, we know the science, we know the legitimacy of this. There's no competition, there's nothing out there as good, and we know when somebody comes to us with antioxidants. Oh yeah, well what's the ORAC rating? Well, what's ORAC mean? We'll find out, and tell me what the rating is. And I don't care what the rating is for the fruit when it was plucked off the bush in Brazil a year ago. That's not what I'm buying. That's not what I'm paying for. I want to know what I'm actually swallowing to make sure it didn't oxidize during the manufacturing process. You learn all these types of questions. And sometimes when I was trying to get educated in the beginning years, I would actually ask my upline, my leaders, what questions do I not know to ask? I mean, what am I overlooking? What do I need to know? I want to learn from your mistakes. I don't want to have to repeat the mistakes. So teach me what I don't even know to ask. Okay, number 6, thinking everything is going to be great. They say find the right 4 people, but you have to be the right person first, don't you? And prepare them for the inevitable negatives. Most will say no. It will be harder than you think. Those closest to you will think you're crazy or that you've joined some kind of a cult. Those who drop out will blame you. People will break their agreement and not follow through. Bad press is a part of life. You'll feel like giving up. You'll be fearful. You'll be angry. You'll certainly be frustrated. Microsoft had bad press, but it didn't slow them down. It will blow over. Leaders stick with a company for better, for worse, and Manitech has gone through a lot, and we've always come out better, and we always will, because it's a legitimate company. It's got awesome products and great people. The best people stick with the company, of course, and so it just gets better and better. You know, these trials weed out those that weren't going to be very successful anyhow, I suppose. So just know that nothing worthwhile is easy. I had one person tell me, I don't like these weekly meetings, from 7:30 to 9. I told him the meetings I don't like are the daily 9 to 5. For gosh sakes. And so keep working on yourself, and that's might be the hardest part of the whole thing. I mean, Jesus started with a couple, and they referred others to him, and he picked up more as it came along and ended up with 12, and one of them quit. But now it's a huge religion. Millions and millions of people around the world through word of mouth. Okay, but my point is, how much do we reflect Christ-like virtue, Christ-like character, Christ-like appeal? And there were still people that didn't even like him, wanted to crucify him. For God's sakes, you aren't going to get crucified in this business, but it'll drive you nuts, especially with your closest family and friends. because of prophets without honor in their own home. And I still, after 14 years, I send postcards from all over the world. I'm driving them nuts. Call them from the top of Vail Mountain skiing, and Hip Deep Powder, and he's still at his job, and my other buddies. And but that's okay. That's how it is. Get through your warm market as quickly as you can, because you'll have more success with your cold market, because they won't know who you are. They won't know your background or anything, and you'll come across as the expert, and with something they need to check out. And so they'll be much more receptive. Your closest friends know that they're going to see you next year at the family reunion or over Christmas or Thanksgiving, so they figure, well, I'll just wait and watch, see how you do. And what's caught the attention of a lot of our friends is this: you're still in that thing? After all these years, you're still doing that? Oh, maybe it is good. We've had people come back to us years later and said, I want to get involved now. But initially, they have nothing to lose. They think they can just sit and watch and see how we do. And so success is the best revenge. Okay, number 7, not following the system. Oh boy, I was guilty of that. It wasted about a year and a half initially. Don't reinvent the wheel. An activity easier than the activity of talking to people always tends to lure us away from building the business. Follow a successful system. And if you aren't familiar with the simple approach, I'd be glad to send you to it on the web, or send you some documents you can download. But the simple system is great because of its simplicity. And you want to focus on improving yourself rather than the system. As I said before, the hardest thing is to improve ourselves. And and that's why these books on self-improvement and self-esteem and everything else are so important. But you want to follow a system that works. Find a platinum presidential. If you're upline, if the person that enrolled you is brand new too, or if the person that enrolled them isn't much better, go to your regional director who's had some success, or go to your national director, go to your executive director, or your presidential director. You'll never be turned down. Any stage you want to start at, wherever you're comfortable, wherever you can relate. Go there and they'll take you under their wing, because we're looking for people that want to be successful. Okay. Number 8, prejudging prospects, especially their financial situation. Oh, well, I won't even talk to them about the all-star, the master associate level, because they're poor, and don't do that. Don't judge somebody else's situation by your situation. Just because you wouldn't or couldn't doesn't mean they won't. Let them know the options, and then let them decide for themselves. And they may also be a great source for referrals. Don't they say we're 5 steps away, 5 contacts away from anybody in the world, if we could only figure out those contacts? So put it out there to everybody, rich or poor, successful and unsuccessful, because we have people in Manatech who are multimillionaires, who never went to college, who didn't graduate from high school. We have black people, white people, oriental people, red people. We got young and old, and males and females. Anybody can be successful. You'll discover this really comes down to attitude. So don't prejudge anybody. Number 9, not using their names. Remember and use people's names in the conversations. Now, if you're not so good that way, after you meet with them and then move on or whatever, write down their name and keep track of it on your tickle file, on your follow-up sheets and things like that. Or repeat their name after you're introduced. But the main reason we don't remember names is because we don't concentrate on names, do we? We just say, oh, hi, and we scarcely hear the name. Repeat it a couple times to yourself. Nothing is as sweet to a person's ears as their own name. So use it. You establish rapport, you establish a personal connection. It makes a difference. People appreciate it, and they're, frankly, in this day and age, they're a little amazed. Number 10, predetermining how many people you'll need to enroll, how many it will take for success. This can't be determined. So don't quit if you haven't had success with the first 10. You simply have to prospect how many? Enough. Enough people. And you deal with your fear of rejection by just doing it, no matter how scary. They will look at you first, before looking at what you give them. You must appear confident, but that comes more naturally after a couple hundred conversations. After several thousand, fortunately there are hundreds of thousands of people to talk with, wherever you go. And we're all over the world. Really on a daily basis, there are hundreds of people you can talk with, hundreds of conversations you can have. You'll be able to enroll probably 1 in 4. Somebody who's really good and really experienced might get 1 in 4. You have lots of 1-minute conversations to determine interest by asking questions. And that's fine. Some of them don't go anywhere, and that's great. Use it all as practice. But, you know, somebody thinks, well, I don't know anybody else. I talked to all 3 of my friends, and they all said no. So I guess I can't do this. You ever felt like that? Well, no. Then the fun begins, because then you get to go out and interact with people all over the place. And there are people tonight who will be praying, oh Lord, either take me home or heal me. I can't keep going. I'm in too much pain. And they're praying for someone like you to come along. And all the research indicates that 5% of the people you talk with will say yes right away. Right away. All you have to do is ask them. They've already done the research, so they've already been looking, and they're ready to say yes. There are about another 15% that'll say yes with a couple questions, just to make sure this is really what they've been looking for. And then there's another maybe 25% who will say yes, but they got to think about it and do their own research, and you'll have to come back to them a couple times. About 60% of the people you talk to will say no, and probably not change. So out of 10 people, 6, just expect 6 to say no. And don't worry about it, because the no's don't matter. The no's don't change anything. The no's don't affect your income. They don't affect your life. Remember that song? No, can't do that. Yeah, you know, just no's are part of life. It's the yeses that matter. Oh, the yeses make a huge difference, but you got to go through a bunch of no's to get a yes. And really, the only difference between you and me is that I've got more no's than you. But you'll get more yeses too. So it's just a numbers game, they say. You know, look for people, and of course, you know, if you get 1 out of 10, that's good. If you get 2 out of 10, that's better. If you get 3, you know, we want to increase your success rate. And your retention. And that comes by training, comes by practice, comes by, I mean, how many of these pitfalls have you already made? And we're only up through number 10. Let's take a look at number 11. Not using stories and testimonies. Facts tell, but stories sell. It's almost like, you know, you sell the sizzle, not the steak. Now, to me, in terms of integrity, walking in integrity, my ethics require that the steak be outstanding. But people really are more interested in knowing what this will do for them than knowing all the science and the details. I mean, somebody goes into Vitamin Cottage or GNC or Wild Oats or Whole Foods, they aren't going to sit down now, tell me all the science, tell me all. They just kind of read the label, and you'll notice most labels are full of hyperbole and how wonderful this is and what this magnificent stuff will do. And so, don't get so detailed that you lose people. You know, tell the stories. Tell the testimonials. What did you notice? What did it do for you? What did it do to me? I fell 3 stories off Russell Sage Dormitory at Dartmouth and broke my back when I hit the sidewalk. I fell 30 feet directly climbing in the Wind River Range in Wyoming, peeled off a cliff backwards, and landed on the back of my neck and shoulders in a boulder field. I got hit head-on outside of Ottawa, Canada by a guy who stole a blue car and fell asleep at the wheel. and hit me head on, and he died, and I cut my chin. I used to race on the Dartmouth ski team and got tired of New England boilerplate and heard they had real powder out west, so I came out to Colorado, and I skiing at Aspen Highlands with a friend, and it had been a kind of a slow day, so we agreed to meet the last run at the parking lot, and I took off, and I, down by the bottom, I was flying around 65 miles an hour, came over a ridge, the trail went that way, and I went flying through the woods, landed on a plowed road, delaminated my ski up to the toe binding, and flipped into the woods on the other side, and it got the adrenaline going, but it didn't help my back. And then I fell 800 feet off Tuckerman's Ravine on the side of Mount Washington, and Giffey and Augie and the other guys, they couldn't believe I survived, but my back was beginning to protest at that point, and I ought to be in a wheelchair by now, and I was dealing with a lot of issues, pain, and things weren't working right. And so I've got that kind of a testimony. My wife got rid of all her PMS and hot flashes and night sweats and all that stuff, and she's happy all the time. And you know, so look around for the things. They don't have to be big dramatic things. You can't talk in terms of diseases anyhow, but in terms of overall general health, we're all going to notice these products. And if you're taking enough of the right stuff, it'll make a huge difference. So if it's not your own story yet at this point, use mine, or use your other leaders or the other people you get to know. Make sure you go to the conventions and the conferences and the briefings and learn what this stuff is doing. We can still talk in terms of systems and functions, our cardiovascular system, our musculoskeletal functions, and that kind of stuff. And you'll still hear wonderful testimonies. And financial testimonies, going from a Christian school teacher who was trying to raise a family on, about $19,000 a year. People asked if we believed in miracles. Man, we depended on them. And now, I mean, when my wife got to the point where she was almost making, in a month what I was making in a year, I thought, sheesh, maybe the Lord's leading in another direction, because money's just a tool. I think the devil's had it long enough, and we can use it for a lot of good. And so I'm still teaching. I'm still having fun with more people and watching God work in miraculous fashions as they get their health back and stay healthy and that sort of thing. I apologize for my squeaky chair. I hope that doesn't come out too loudly, but I just get so psyched. This is such an awesome company. But try and avoid these pitfalls, and do use the stories. Do use testimonials. Of course, the opposite side of that is pitfall number 12, being too technical. Don't be too technical. Interest is not in how the comp plan works, but how powerful the concept of leverage and exponential growth is. Making $200 to $300 a month will interest them. Don't tell them initially that they'll get to the point where they're making $2,000 or $3,000 a month, because that's unbelievable. So just stick with something, in grasp. I mean, really, an extra $300 a month would have saved 83% of the bankruptcies last year. So that's nothing to sneeze at. Okay, pitfall number 13. Not working in your local market. Lots of times we think, well, the grass is greener on the other side. Oh, well, he's successful because he lives in California or in Texas, or nothing ever happens in New England. That's a bunch of crock. People are suffering all over the place. Everybody needs to feel better, look better, and live better. And our approach, well, we'll talk about the pitfalls and some of our approaches that come naturally. Things that come naturally aren't necessarily going to work very well. Work in your local market first. All areas have equal potential. It is the belief itself which is limiting, but working long distance first is very difficult and more expensive. Because remember, this is a people business. We had one presidential who gave a workshop on how to build this business in your pajamas, working over the internet. A year and a half later, he gave a workshop on how important it is to get out of your pajamas. Well, because it's a people business. They want to look you in the eye. They want to see your intent, your sincerity. They want to get to know you. And you can't do that necessarily long distance as well. And of course, there's less support possible to create strong bonds. More travel and more travel time is involved. There are cultural differences if you're talking about other countries. They'll use the same excuse, of course. Well, my local market doesn't work in Singapore. So start locally, because, sure, wouldn't it be glamorous if we had business in all the countries of the world? Well, by now we probably do, even though we haven't been to these other countries. Why? Because we were successful in finding people locally who knew people in Tokyo, in Taipei, in Seoul, in Germany. We don't have to spend all our money to go there. In fact, it's harder to relate if it's a different culture. We don't have the contacts. But we have people here, Germans in town, who have friends and relatives still back in Germany. We have people in this area who have friends in Singapore or Mexico where we're opening. And so always start locally. Okay, number 14. Telling is not selling. In other words, not asking enough questions. We get so excited about this business. Man, we want to lay the whole load on everybody. Oh, you ought to see how this good. This is magnificent. Look what it did for me. Well, they don't care about that. They want to know what it'll do for them. And if we're presumptuous enough to say, well, you need this. You got to check this out, blah, blah, blah. No. People don't care what you know till they know that you care. And they aren't going to know that you care if the focus is on you and you're throwing it on them. The focus has to be on them. You have to care enough to shut up and ask questions and learn what they have to say. This is a questioning business. You aren't going to discover their needs if you don't ask questions. And yet, the biggest problem we all make initially is we run off at the mouth about, boy, have you heard about man cakes? This stuff is good, blah, blah, blah. And it's unbelievable. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And how presumptuous we are to think they need it without even inquiring as to what their needs may be. Who are you anyway to decide what's good for them? Ask questions in order to identify needs, and then ask, what system do you have in place right now which will create that for you in the near future? Whether that is a bigger home, whether that is a reliable car. What do they have going right now that will enable them to reach those dreams, those goals? If I could help you get more of those things which are important to you, would you take a serious look? Other good questions. What would you change about your health today? Can you see yourself in your job 5 years from now? Why? What would you change about your career? How'd you like to cut your taxes 40%? Since they come up with answers, they believe them because it's their answers. And as you're dialoguing, they hear what they're saying, and they realize this is good, and I don't have an answer. And they're now tuned in because they know that you cared enough to ask. Everybody appreciates someone who shows a sincere concern for them. Otherwise, we're coming across as salesmen. We're coming across as, what's in it for me? Why don't you just buy this stuff and I'll get your money? That's why people are so leery of that approach. Okay, question number 15. Taking rejection personally. Don't take rejection personally because it has nothing to do with you. People are rejecting their own dreams because they aren't ready, or they aren't clear about the opportunity, or they're not in need. Just last night at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, I talked with a gal, and after our conversation I asked a lot of questions. When she asked me what I did, I said, well, our business is opening shortly in Mexico, and I don't speak Spanish, and I didn't know if you knew anybody from Mexico. And what do you do? And I kept going back to, what do you do? And how do you like it? And what are your needs? And she's the first person I've met in a long time that felt great, and she exercised every day, looked great, and she was using a skincare product that she was very happy with, and she didn't need any fat loss, and lived well. She was making plenty of money. And she was happy with her job. She felt fulfilled in her job. So that was great. And, we had a good chat, a good conversation. Then I moved on, and I picked up about, I think by the end of the evening, about 14 emails of people who wanted information. Because I told them I could send them to a website called ExploreManatech.com if they were sincere about really taking a look. And they said they were. and so I just follow up now and get them information. And, but that I shouldn't take her rejection personally. She had all the needs filled. And when we're hesitant to approach people, is because we think they'll think we have ulterior motives. Well, do you? Do you really care about them? Do you care more about them than about yourself? If these products really are as good, is this opportunity of health and hope, opportunity, if it's really that good, then how can you not share it with them? And they won't even think that if you do it right, that you're in it for the money, or that you just want to make a sale. So there won't be that kind of rejection. Don't go into this thing with a guilt trip. If you're guilty about sharing this with people, you got to do more homework and find out how legit this is, and how many prayers it's answered, how many people it's helped. If you're a waitress serving coffee in the morning to the rush hour crowd that's come into the coffee shop for a cup of coffee before heading off, and you're offering refills, yes, no, no, yes, no, yes, no. That last no, you don't shriek in disgust and dismay and rip off your apron and say, I can't stand any more rejection. No, of course not. And people who open a store and put up a big sign and watch all the cars drive by, he's not going to take that personally. That's the nature of the business. Some people will see the sign and say, oh, I need that, and swing into the parking lot and come into your store. But a lot of store owners spend a lot of the day just reading a book until a customer arrives. And they don't get all uptight and distraught, because that's the nature of the business. And if they service their customer as well, they'll come back, and they'll come back and order more and more. Even if there's a better deal somewhere else, they'll come back because of the loyalty. And we need that in multi-level marketing and network marketing. We need to service our downline. So don't take rejection personally. No's, as I said earlier, they don't count. So let's stop at this point, and then we'll continue on.